All right, I'm here with Bill Moreau from the Indiana Citizen. Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Dan.
Let's talk about the suit that the Indiana Citizen has filed this week. What do you find most concerning? What do you find most concerning about the actions the Secretary of State and Attorney General have taken here on this issue?
Well, Dan, this is a story that's almost a year old, and right, it was right before the last general election. So, in the middle of October, with great fanfare, the Secretary of State and Attorney General announced that they had sent three lists of Indiana registered voters off to the federal government to check and see how many of them were non-citizens. So the three lists comprised about 600,000 Hoosiers. And at the core of it was this idea that some number of registered voters were criminals, right? Because if you're a non-citizen, you can't register to vote. And so if you do register to vote as a non-citizen, you've perjured yourself. And then if you take the next step and go ahead and vote, that's a separate crime. So, with great fanfare, as I said, and right before the election, they announced we've sent some 600,000 names to DC. We're trying to figure out how many people on this list are non-citizens. So with just a few weeks to go before the election, they throw into question, whether some of us, heck, I could be on that list. We're non-citizens, and then having produced these lists and attached them to a cover letter, wouldn't release the lists to us. And here it is, almost a year later, and they still haven't.
What are you hoping to learn from this lawsuit?
Well, the names and addresses of the 600,000 who are on that list, and see who they are, and I guess at that point, we'd serve as sort of a clearinghouse. You could go to our website and see whether your name's on it. And what's particularly ironic about this, Dan, is that in April of this year, the Secretary of State and Attorney General, they hadn't gotten a response from the federal government, filed a lawsuit against the federal government, federal court, to get these names revealed. So they haven't given up on the idea of trying to figure out who on the list are non-citizens, and we haven't given up on the goal of getting this list of names. All they have to do is release the names, and the lawsuit goes away. And here we are having to file a lawsuit to compel them to do so. Thank goodness for the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, who are representing us pro bono, because our little nonprofit, we couldn't have possibly afforded to hire counsel.
What are you hearing from election experts about how common or uncommon it might be for someone who is a non-citizen to actually register to vote or attempt to actually vote, and how common or uncommon that is here in Indiana?
Well, I could speculate because there certainly have been assertions made. County clerks who a couple of years ago came to the General Assembly and said that they knew of people in their own counties who were non-citizens who were registered to vote. Well, if that's the case, go knock on their door and ask for proof of citizenship. Take the county sheriff with you. I think this concern is way overblown. I think it's part of a national effort to undermine the integrity of the election system. I mean, the very idea that the Secretary of State of Indiana, the state's chief election officer, would call into question the accuracy of our voter registration rolls is just outrageous. And so now it's time to kind of put up or shut up. Now, remember, if you're a non-citizen and you have registered to vote, you've committed a crime. And this is not about trying to make a case that non-citizens should vote. Heck, the name of our organization is the Indiana Citizen. We firmly believe that a key element of citizenship, of American citizenship, is the right to vote. So nobody's trying to argue that non-citizens should be able to register and vote, but they've created a list and asserted that some of us on that list must be criminals. Okay, well, seems like there may be some due process issues involved in that. Okay, just show us the list. And they're serious about trying to get the federal government to run these names against the citizenship roles. Okay, just give us the list.
Let's also talk about some of the reporting your organization is doing on another statewide office holder, the lieutenant governor, who's been under scrutiny for a number of reasons. Recently, your reporting in the Indiana Citizen, your reporting staff recently highlighted uh, an initiative of his that's gone somewhat under the radar in terms of trying to change the way that schools may be able to teach about certain topics. What did you uncover?
Right. So we broke a story about the existence of something that the lieutenant governor has called his anti-woke advisory committee. And the risk of using a prop, these are the minutes of that meeting held in his office on April 11th while the General Assembly was still in session, convened a group, assembled them around his conference table during regular office hours using state resources and state staff to build an agenda to go after wokeism wherever it exists in the state of Indiana, especially within the schools. And so this task force was convened at a time the General Assembly was considering legislation ultimately passed with his strong support to make school board elections partisan for the first time. And so now you can see within the minutes of this meeting what the agenda is. This is a task force convened to drive wokeism out of public schools, out of the universities, to conduct audits of teacher education programs around the state. It goes on and on and on about initiatives to really go into our colleges and universities and drive out wokeism wherever it may be, and frankly replace it with a Christian nationalist agenda. That's what this is really all about. And there's no summary that any journalist or that I could do of this document. It really cries out every page to be read, including auditing organizations, nonprofit organizations that might be guilty of wokeism. But I think one of the most alarming aspects of it is to conduct an audit of Indiana's teacher prep programs under the assumption that education colleges are indoctrinating teachers with a so-called DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion worldview. And I've just frankly been surprised that there hadn't been a greater reaction to our reporting. But maybe it's emblematic of the fact that it's just hard to provoke any outrage. But I could tell you, having spent some time in the Indiana State House myself, Dan, the idea that the lieutenant governor would be convening, with state resources and state employees, an advisory committee of this nature to pursue such an agenda, it's just unprecedented, to be sure.
And you can read more of that reporting on the Indiana Citizens website. Bill, while I have you, I also want to ask you about the big topic right now at the State House, this entire debate about redistricting and what may come of that. We've seen some potential maps here and there, but nothing yet from Republican leadership about whether they'll actually go through with the process of a special session. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, right. So we first became really well acquainted back in 2021 when we covered the decennial redistricting and revealed how gerrymandered those maps were to get to 7-2, and how you get to 8-1 or 9-0 without just gerrymandering that would even make Elbridge Gerry himself blush. It's unclear to me how you could do that. But I do find it instructive that the special session hasn't already been called. And what I hear is that the two Republican legislative leaders are getting pushback from their caucuses because what their members are being asked to do is to redraw the nine congressional maps, right? This isn't about redrawing the 100 House or the 50 state Senate map. So for a state legislature, there's only downside. There's only political downside to you in going in and redrawing congressional maps. You can't even help yourself by redrawing your own district. So I wouldn't bet the family farm that they're not going to do it. If I had to bet the family farm, which we don't have, it would be that they are going to go ahead and do it. But I think it's instructive that it's taken this long and for the special session to be called. And of course, there's only one person under Indiana Constitution to call that special session, and that's Governor Braun. And he understandably is taking a wait and see approach before he calls that special session.
We'll see how it all plays out. A lot happening there at the State House. Bill, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always.
I'm happy to join you anytime, Dan. Good seeing you.